Have you ever felt like you are just too much? Like you need to dim your light? Maybe the people around you just can't accept you for who you are, and you're tired of feeling this way. I've been there too, so let's talk about it. Hi, love. It's your girl, Court, and you are tuning into season 3 of Loving Life with Court. Let's talk about it. Hello, lovelies. I am so excited to be back for this second episode of season 3. Let's talk about it. The last episode was all about leaning into self-love when self-worth is low. And I think today's topic is really going to jive in with that vibe and lean right into what we're going to be talking about today, which is really understanding that you are never too much. And I'm going to say that again. If you are in that space that I've been many times where you just feel like the people around you cannot accept you for who you are, I need to tell you that you are not too much. For me, my self-worth is strongly driven by this idea that I am too much. It has always been that if people didn't accept me for who I was, this really affected my own self-worth. I didn't feel confident in the person that I showed up as. And you could see this in all parts of my life, in my career, in my relationships, in my intimate relationship with my husband. Really, any dynamic that I shared externally, it was reflected. And personally, too, the way I valued myself, the beliefs that I had about myself were always very much influenced by if other people could accept me for who I was. And let me say, I know that now in this space that I'm in, some people can't. So let's explain why I think that you are not too much, why I know that I'm not too much, and how you can start changing your mindset and your perspective on this entire idea. So many of you know, if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, that my childhood was quite colorful in the sense that I didn't really have a childhood at some points of my life. I was always in this state of fight or flight, sometimes even freeze. And it really impacted how I showed up in the world, between caring for my mom and having really bad anxiety, and a dad who was not around as often as I would preferred. I felt like I really didn't fit in. I was, constantly having different people caring for me, whether it was my grandmother on either side or my mom. And I found it very hard, first of all, not being around other children often because of my anxiety and not wanting to go to school and not wanting to go out on the weekends. I was very in a space that, I had really bad separation anxiety from my mom as a child, and it left me socializing with mostly adults. Now, with this, I didn't feel like I fit in. I never felt like I fit in with the people that were my age. But this is because the fact that I struggled so much with building relationships with people that are my own age. And I still struggle with this, honestly. And because of that, going back again, I felt like I didn't fit in, but I lent into attention. Attention meant that I was safe and I was constantly finding ways to get it. And whether that was getting attention from my mom, and if I was getting her attention, I felt that we were both safe together, we were both taken care of, we were okay. Getting attention from my dad, from my grandparents, just trying to, going to people pleasing, trying to also please anybody I could. When I'd go to church, I always wanted to be the person that was helping all of the time, because I thought that, if people would praise me and see that I was a good kid, that the attention would keep coming. I really, really was fed by attention. And honestly, I could continue to unpack this with you. I've done a lot of unpacking with my therapist. But how this morphed into now me at 25 years old is that sometimes I am too much for people. I'm going to say that very lightly, and I've put quotation marks around that, finger quotations, because what I realized is that you are never going to be liked by every single person. And for me to understand that, it took a long time. It's very difficult for me to accept that some people don't enjoy my company. That was very hard. It was very impactful on my self esteem and my self worth, like I touched on. And because of this, I felt like I needed to morph into whoever people wanted me to be so that I could feel accepted and feel loved. And that meant constantly dimming my light, constantly dimming who I was and how I show up in the world. And it continued to where even behind closed doors, I was still that person that was stuck being dimmed all the time. And I didn't really know where to go from there. So, like we talked about in the last episode about leaning into self love when self worth is low, I realized that my self love and self worth were extremely low. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't know my favorite color, my favorite foods, any of my favorites. I couldn't tell you. I didn't know what I like to do, my hobbies, because I become so disconnected from the person that I once really loved, the little girl that didn't care if she was too loud or if she was too silly. And I had just come to realize that it was time to figure out who I wanted to be as someone who didn't care what other people thought. And I decided that I wasn't going to let other people drive my self worth, my self love, because if I can love myself and feel worthy as exactly who I am, that doesn't give anybody the power anymore to change how much I love myself, how worthy I feel, and how I show up in the world. So, this is kind of like a cycle. It's a never ending cycle, and it can be good or bad. Because before, what I was doing is that I would try to be who I was around people that I knew wouldn't accept me for who I was. And I felt like I was fighting these people all the time, especially in my career, because I just wanted to be exactly who I was. And first, realizing that I'm not too much was the biggest hurdle, but it's harder said than done. So I really want to break it up what I did and share with you. Maybe if something sticks, great. If not, no problem. But just share with you what's really helped me in understanding that some spaces are not for you. Some people are not for you. You're not for them. But that should no longer drive what you think about yourself, your self worth, your self love, and if you feel like you are too much for people, because that should be a feeling that you really never have. Okay, so this has taken me many years, but I would say the most significant impact has been about in the last 3 months. It's really been a roller coaster. But how I started is I first just made space. I just made space for exploring who I am, what I like to do, what I feel passionate about. And the biggest thing for me was recognizing who my people were and who my people weren't. And it's so funny because I had this business coach thinking that you're going to learn all about business. And he actually taught me a lot about myself. And what he made me do is understand who my people were and who my people weren't. And my people were very much similar to who I am, vulnerable, humble, positive, optimistic. It was really easy for me to understand who my people were. Now, what I struggled with was understanding who my people weren't. Because as a people pleaser, there's not many people on your list that you don't want to associate yourself with, right? Besides the obvious, like murderers and and people like that. But I really struggled with recognizing who the people were, sorry, that I did not want in my life. So, I just started thinking about the people that make me feel, or the people I've been around that I feel uncomfortable around, they don't make me feel that way. I do that to myself. But I started thinking about who those people were, right? And the first thing was people that are extremely ego driven. Because as a people pleaser, I want people to feel good as they are, right? But coming on the other end of that now and starting to realize where it's stemming from and healing from that, I've realized that I cannot help everybody. And the people that are very ego driven really take a toll out on me because I feel this pull of wanting to validate who they are, but also at the end feeling like shit about myself because the energy that I share with that person is just so completely different, right? When someone has really low energy and your energy is high, it's pure, it's harmonious, they will try to bring your energy down. And it's for me, I found that I was still struggling with blocking my energy from certain people, the flow of energy, right? So, yeah, the first thing I had to do was figure out who my people are not. And I realized that it's people that are, like I said, very ego driven. It's people that, like many of us feel, you feel like you constantly have to validate them. And I have a list, but I really encourage you to explore this idea on your end as well, because I could share all mine with you. But I invite you to really think about when are the times that you're around people and you feel uncomfortable, and what qualities or traits do they have in common? Because the thing is, and when I was taking space to really explore this, I realized that I am the only person that gives the power to make me feel like I'm too much. And, I could try to change that person. I could try to change how I react around that person. The way we respond is very powerful. But something I also realized that I could do is learn how, number one, learn to block my energy from those people and really become aware of who are the people I want in my life and who are the people I do not want in my life. And sticking with those boundaries and setting those boundaries for myself so that when I see someone around me that shows these traits that I'm very aware of now, I can block my energy, still lead with love, but no longer let my light be dimmed around those people. And that is the biggest thing with energy. When your energy becomes low, your light dims, right? So really what I learned is how I want to shine. How do I want people to perceive me? How do I want to perceive myself? And how do I want to shine in a way that at the end of the day, I feel confident as the person I showed up as? First thing I'd say is you should already feel that way, but let's be realistic. Sometimes you got to do the work, right? So what I did with that, the first, like I said, the biggest part was recognizing who my people were, who my people weren't, and then learning how I wanted to shine and how I want to continue shining is, again, I became really specific. I put specific words to my question. So, who my people weren't, I found specific traits to look for. And learning how I want to shine, I want it to be very specific. I didn't want to just say, oh, I want people to feel loved around me and accepted. Well, how can I do that? So, being very specific in the sense that I want to have a gentle nature. I don't want to feel this need to be loud. So, how can I lean into that and really understanding more? Because, some of us are just naturally loud, but I do believe for me that this is more of an anxiety thing. I become louder when I feel intimidated. So, really understanding how do I want to shine and how can I feel good about myself at the end of the day by knowing that I showed up exactly as that person. So, the simple answer is start becoming very specific who your people are, who your people are not, how you want to shine. So, are there parts of you that maybe you don't really like and are impeding your self worth and self love? Because there's nothing wrong with recognizing that, but it's moving forward in a way that you are gentle and compassionate with that. So for me, I knew that when I was in uncomfortable settings, I'd become very loud. So learning how can I be more gentle? Well, recognizing when I feel that way, blocking my energy, taking a step back, and leading with love and gentleness. And understanding the last one. So, throughout this work, I really wanted to start with understanding why these feelings were coming up, but I realized I really had to do a backward chain on that. And first, starting with who my people were and who my people weren't, like I said, learning how I want to shine, and then facing the feelings. Why do these feelings come up? Because once I started doing the work throughout, I started realizing why these feelings came up. And that's where how I started. My childhood wasn't much of a childhood. I realized that I was very attention driven. When I was given praise and when I was given ample attention, I felt safe in that space. So, how could I start giving myself attention and love and praise where I don't depend on someone else to do that for me and I can create a space of safety and love within? I hope that helped. Maybe it's a lot, but yeah, it's been really amazing to see how it's unfolded for me, and I look forward to hearing how it's unfolding for you. That's today's episode. We chatted about it, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. You already know that if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you are following so you don't miss another episode. If you like to see how I live my life, feel free to check out the show notes below for my Insta, Facebook, and TikTok handles. Love you bunches. Don't forget to ask yourself today what you're grateful for, and I'll see you on the next episode.